Nightshade Cult, a podcast macabre.
We bid you welcome. Enter freely and of your own will.
I'm Nick Grimm.
And I'm David Graves.
We will be your horror host for this dissection of David Lynch's 2017 surrealist mystery horror limited series event, Twin Peaks: The Return.
Good evening.
So had you seen this before?
No, I hadn't seen it.
So
I don't know why.
What had you seen before? Just the first season?
The first two seasons.
Okay, so you had seen season 2.
Yeah, but
okay.
it had been a million years ago.
Okay. Yeah, because you were more familiar with Twin Peaks than I was when we started this journey. I can say every step of the way it has not been what I've expected.
Absolutely not. And we both read the book, the final dossier or whatever it's called.
Yeah. Both of Mark Frost's dossier books, The Secret History of Twin Peaks, and then its sequel, The Final Dossier.
Both were really good.
They were, and they illuminate a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I almost feel like doing The Secret History again after now I've seen all the material. Mm-hmm. Reading the Secret History again might be fun, but I don't know. I've got a stack a mile high of things I need to read.
Things you need to read? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't need to. I want to.
You want to, yeah. So this was just like it says, or like Laura told Agent Cooper in the Black Lodge, I'll see you in 25 years.
Absolutely.
25 years later, they get the gang back together and they go back to this.
It was crazy how much of the gang they were able to get back together after 25 years. Almost everybody.
Yeah, of the people that were alive, the Harry Truman did not return because he was fully retired and not coaxable. There was some other people who were mostly retired but willing to do it.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that he didn't make an appearance. The guy who played his brother did a fine job.
Yeah,
but I would have almost rather they just wrote it as Harry and they just recast it.
Yeah. So Robert Forster, who was originally cast to play Harry and couldn't do it for whatever reason. And then they brought in I'm blanking on his name, but the guy who played him in the original series. So I don't think the plan was always for them to have two brothers, although they're both talked about in the book. So possibly he always had a brother.
Yeah, who knows? I know that they were pretty liberal with rewrites and changes on the fly. I watched an interview with David Lynch where he talked about how a lot of pre-planning did happen, but nothing was ever etched in stone until they actually filmed it, because it was most important to go with your muse and with the creative process. Whatever kind of came up and felt right at the time, that's what you should do.
Yeah, and like the stuff with Bob is all sort of happy accidents.
Yeah.
And then that becomes crucial to the mythology.
Absolutely.
So the other person who didn't reappear was Michael J. Anderson, played the man from Another Place.
Yes.
He was, out of everyone in the cast, he was the one that tried to price gouge. On the bud. He wanted a better salary, and found himself replaced by a tree.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. That was like a weird, almost like Nightmare Before Christmas-esque, like stop motion tree thing
with a brain on it.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, so no one is irreplaceable except for probably Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, he really was the best in this, of course. I found that this was really interesting, and it was satisfying in the way that every episode was directed by David Lynch, so there's like a purity of vision throughout.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't get a lot of the stuff that you got in season 2, where you have, just different people doing things, and you have episodes that could almost be completely deleted from the season and it wouldn't impact anything else. Nothing was like that in this season.
Yeah. After I finished The Secret History, it sort of solidified what storylines didn't matter because they don't get referred to at all. So like little Nicky the orphan gets no pages in the book. And the stuff with James and the weird seductress who tries to implicate him or whatever gets like a footnote.
Yeah, it's very, very brief.
James is essentially a side character in Big Ed's story, is the way the book portrays it.
For sure. And it was apparent that after season 1, it seemed like nobody was invested in James, and then the stuff in season 2 they failed to set the hook. This felt like a art house series of short films at times.
Yeah, and that's I'm glad you mentioned that, because there is a school of thought that considers this a film and not a TV series. Cahiers du Cinema called it the best film of the decade.
The 90s? No. I'm sorry. I keep thinking the 90s from Twin Peaks 1.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, maybe the teens, but definitely.
I mean, I think it's not a film. I don't consider it an 18-hour film.
I also wouldn't say it's the best film of the teens, even if it was.
Yeah. But it's interesting. It's, I'm glad we had, I finished it last Friday. We're recording on a Thursday. I'm glad I had a week to sit and kind of wrestle with it in my head, because if we'd recorded last week, I would have been much more frustrated with the show. I've kind of come to terms with it over the intervening week, as I've pondered the mysteries it left me with.
Yeah, I've had a similar amount of time. I think I finished it up on Saturday that evening. And I think I had some, I guess, pain points with this, things that I had really wanted out of this that I didn't get. And at this point, I'm kind of at peace with where it left me.
Yeah, that is, you had to kind of come to terms with it. I think I mentioned last episode that the Blank Check podcast did a whole David Lynch series a few months ago, and they devoted 4 episodes to this series.
Oh, wow.
And something that came up multiple times in their discussion is there is this sort of, at some point, a feeling of resignation that comes over you when you're watching it, where you're like, oh, this isn't going to be what I thought it was, and you accept what it is. Like, it's not ever going to be a show about Dale Cooper returning to Twin Peaks and catching up with everyone. That's not what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely its own thing, and the way that Lynch talked about it, how he wanted it to have its own momentum. He didn't want it to be just a nostalgia piece. He wanted this to be kind of a takeoff from, basically use what had already come as a launching pad for this to be a new creative endeavor. Yeah. He definitely did that.
Yeah, and it's commenting on a very different time. It's post Great Recession, post or middle of the opioid crisis, and it is reflecting a very different America than the one that the first series was, which was still kind of like in the sort of Reagan era. It's it's the Bush era, but it was the dying days of the Reagan era.
Yeah.
And this was just a bleaker, more sinister time. I don't know how to describe it.
I think it's definitely a more cynical time.
Yeah, for sure.
There's not a lot of idealism in this show, whereas in the first season there was significantly more. Yeah, things felt a little more innocent, even though there's horrible things going on. There was a veneer of civility. Yeah, in The Return, it really feels pretty raw the whole time. Yeah. There's no pretense of being decent.
Yeah, a lot of that is stripped away, and whereas actually, let's save some of this for the storytelling part. We're otherwise we're gonna start just digging this apart. Why don't we roll the music and get into the dissection? After 25 years trapped in the malevolent Black Lodge, Special Agent Dale Cooper struggles to return to the material plane and awaken from the fugue state it left him in, while his sinister doppelganger attempts to find a gateway to the benevolent White Lodge.
Yeah, this is a science fiction horror, essentially. Yeah. There's a lot of crazy pseudoscience and paranormal stuff going on, way more than any of the previous material. It's
this very odd synthesis of like the sort of like it's monomyth sort of things where it's taking like Eastern scripture and ancient Sumerian gods and Native American animism and Aleister Crowley occultism and 1950s saucerman sci-fi stuff
and atomic testing and crazy weird science
and just combining it all together into sort of one like mega supernatural I don't know what you'd call it, like paradigm of, there's different planes and there are forces in the different planes and they are struggling over influence over the earth.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of like if John Constantine was weirder.
Yeah, like, or like, there's a little, John Constantine and Agent Cooper would be a good team up.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. I bet Keanu and Kyle MacLachlan would enjoy that.
I could see that. And allegedly that Keanu, they've got a script and like that Constantine 2 is trucking along. So we'll hopefully see that coming. So written and directed by Mark Frost and David Lynch. Written by Mark Frost and David Lynch, directed by David Lynch, and edited by Dwayne Dunham.
Okay.
I'm, again, calling out the editing because the editing is weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of non-sequential storytelling going on in this.
And long pauses and just you even texted me about it, about how long they let the silence hang in a conversation. Like,
yeah, it'll be weird, like when you're looking, like, you're kind of over the shoulder camera of a character looking out a window, and he sees something happening out in the yard or across the street or something, and then the thing that's happening is done, and the camera just stays there for another solid 10 count.
It just hangs, or the scenes start prematurely too, like. Where you're like, what am I supposed to be looking at? Like, what is the object here that I'm supposed to pay attention to? And it's not immediately clear.
Yeah, the editing is really odd.
And Gordon will be like, Albert, I've got something to tell you. And it just sits like that. And then he starts talking and you're just like, huh, weird. But all intentional. Like it's not like one of those things where you're like, oh, these people don't know what they're doing. Like, it's seasoned professionals. Everything is happening for a reason. I just don't always understand what the reason is.
Yeah, this is like a really, really intentionally weirdly written thing because they wanted it to, I guess they just wanted it to be mysterious. They wanted there to be unanswered questions when you're done.
Yeah.
This should not be tied up with a bow.
Yeah, and if every time, say, we sit down at a booth at the Roadhouse with a couple of townies and they're talking about interpersonal drama, if you're expecting these characters to show up again or what they're referencing to have any bearing on what's going on in the meta story of the whole thing, don't do that. Because
absolutely not.
9 times out of 10, these conversations go nowhere and mean nothing. Although they do seem to get referenced. Some of them get referenced in Audrey's weird aborted storyline.
Yeah, that occasionally a few small things pop up.
Yeah,
but I think a lot of the scenes in the Roadhouse that they were just slice of life.
Yeah.
Like, what is it like now?
What is it like in Twin Peaks now?
Yeah, I mean, Nine Inch Nails played there, right?
Yeah, the Roadhouse definitely is a hopping spot. Like, a lot of cool indie bands come through and play there. It's Nine Inch Nails, Eddie Vedder. I guess we're just down the 90 from
we're not
Seattle.
too far away.
Yeah, so I guess it's a good tour stop. It's cooler than playing in Spokane. Go play the Roadhouse.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the plot lines. This show had so many different threads you could pull or you could follow, like Dale's fractured personalities that you're following, like Mr. C, which was like the mullet bad guy version of him. Mr. C was the most interesting of the Dale Coopers.
Yeah. Mr. C, you sort of are instantly captivated by because you've not seen Kyle Mack really do this before.
Yes.
And he is the doppelganger to Dale Cooper, so it's like he's his opposite in just about every way.
Yes.
But he has still the sort of supernatural level of charisma that Dale Cooper has and competence that Dale Cooper has, but he's just a purely malevolent force. And he has been just doing crime for 25 years. Like he has become, a multi-billionaire crime lord, essentially, with fingers all over the world. And I kept joking that Evil Dale or Mr. C was the hero of the series.
For sure.
Until like you get pretty deep into it and
he starts doing some bad stuff.
and you just find out that he sexually assaulted Diane.
Yeah, that's
and
no good.
It's certainly implied that he also assaulted Audrey while she was in a coma. And so several unforgivable things besides all the murder. It's so weird. I have such an easier time with him just murdering people than I do with finding out that he raped people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's cultural.
Is that? Yeah, it just bothers me. Like it's like, well, I can't root for this guy anymore. When he's just like busting goons in the face.
Yeah,
like I love that when he hits that guy with the shotgun.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
So yeah, I mean, Mr. C is pretty terrible, and then the other one was Dougie Jones.
Yeah,
the amnesiac insurance salesman that is, he's basically like extremely slow, and he just repeats words that people say to him.
There is Dougie Jones, who is a tulpa that was created by Mr. C to get sucked into the Black Lodge in his place.
Yeah.
And then there is Agent Cooper, and everyone thinks he's Dougie Jones.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. So I went on a whole journey with Dougie Jones. I don't know if this is going to be similar to yours, where I loved him, I hated him, and then I loved him again by the end. Like it was... Like, I was very much like, oh, this is fun. And then they got to, like, this has gone on much too long. And then it was like
10 episodes or something.
Yeah. And then it was like, I do sort of like when Dougie is like solving crimes and like you get like late period Dougie Jones, I'm like, he's sort of weirdly a good dad, and he's just making friends with everyone. And I sort of came back around. I went on a whole arc with Dougie.
Yeah, I got really bored of it because Carrie said this is like slow motion Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Because instead of a 90-minute movie or 2-hour movie, whatever Forrest Gump is, we've been doing this for 10 episodes. And some of the episodes are longer than an hour.
Forrest Gump has a lot more agency.
Absolutely. Like, and his wife doesn't treat him very well. She berates him a lot. And here, check. I mean, come on. It's okay to have issues with what's going on. But he was clearly not in his right mind. He was not even able to form a sentence. So if he can't form a sentence, why are you yelling at him?
Yeah.
He needs to go to a doctor.
I think it's just a suspension of disbelief because everyone accepts it. Not just her. The entire world just sort of leads him along like a dog.
Where have you been, Dougie? Did you go out? Go out. Out. He's like, oh, you've probably been up here gambling again. Gambling again. It's like, come on. Nobody would think that he's not just repeating your words. Like, were you eating dog turds? Dog turds. Like,
oh, that's Dougie.
It's good old Dougie. He's such a cut up. I mean, I guess you have to suspend disbelief because he just repeated what everybody said. And then they took that for agreement with what they said.
Yeah.
And moved on and just sort of grabbed him by the arm and ushered him through.
Yeah.
It was like Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, it was fascinating, and it was a fascinating performance from Kyle MacLachlan because it's more like to think of like the most vacant, like you say, Forrest Gump, right? He's
way more vacant than that.
Oh yeah, Forrest has like opinions and thoughts and stuff. Dougie Jones is a blank slate he's moved like by Dale Cooper in some regard, who's able to lead him to things spiritually or whatever. And he's moved by environmental stimuli. But in general...
He also really likes coffee. That must be Dale.
Yeah. Like there's... and then, and like Dale... I just assume it is Dale moving him from somewhere within.
Yeah.
Because he also finds all of the discrepancies in the case reports for the insurance agency. He does a lot of he is being led somehow.
So that brings the question: if Dale is leading Dougie, because obviously he's leading Dougie's body or whatever, kind of. It's like he's a very remote puppet master with bad controls.
That's it's like a lucid dreamer. Like he's trying to move himself in the dream.
So was it moral or immoral for Dale Dougie to get down with Dougie's wife? Because that wasn't... Dale is not her husband, right?
Well, he was a demonic construct made from his DNA. So... Was he? Is Dougie Jones part of Dale Cooper?
Okay, but do you think that do you think that she married him, and even if it was deceptive, was that okay? I mean, obviously she was into it, so it's not like it was totally immoral, but it seemed un-Dale.
Oh,
it didn't seem very Dale-like to get down with somebody else's wife. Because he knows that's not his wife.
But Dougie Jones doesn't exist.
I know, but still, Dougie doesn't exist. But he never was getting with anybody.
Yeah. Well, I don't...
Except for he had one smooch.
So I just listened to the audiobook of it's called Diane, the tapes of Dale Cooper or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's all of his audio recordings. And
nice.
And one of his... things when he's been shot and he's laying there on the floor at the Great Northern is he says that he would like to make love to a beautiful woman that he had genuine affection for. And so he got his wish twice in this episode or in this show.
Nice. I mean, that is a good thing.
And, the thing that kind of ultimately, who's acting? No one is acting out of line here. So do we morally feel Dougie Jones, the Tulpa, has any rights?
I don't care about Dougie Jones because he's evil.
Okay.
I care about the wife.
The wife.
She's just...
So
she's just a harried woman that is fed up with it all.
She believes that she is sleeping with her
husband.
Right. So arguably, if anyone did not give consent, it was her.
Yeah, because she was duped.
Yeah. However, when Dale comes out of the fugue state, he tells her, you know, like, you two have filled my heart with such love over these weeks. And like, yeah, if you think about it too hard, it can be uncomfortable. I don't think anyone feels bad about the situation.
No, I think
Dale felt good about it.
She was fine with it.
And Janie E felt good about it. And so...
Yeah, what a weird name. Janie E.
Yeah.
As a first name.
Well, the E is her middle initial. But
she goes by Janie-E. Like,
yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Well, their son... What was this? Sonny Jim. Like... Dougie Jones. The Jones family is straight. She married a demonic construct that was a gambling addict and someone who visited sex workers. Like, Janie E doesn't have the best judgment, I don't think.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I'm not against that. I don't think Janie E was a real great lady. She's
really? Oh, Janie, she's one of my favorites.
She is no. The character was good.
Uh-huh.
The acting was good.
Yeah.
But her like moral fiber, questionable.
That's fair. But like, I don't know if she stands up to those loan shark guys. I don't know. Formidable woman.
Yeah, robbing criminals is fine because who are they going to call? The cops?
She paid them what they owed.
She paid
plus
them
what she felt was appropriate interest.
Yeah. and I think if I were them, I would have been fine with that.
Yeah. Well, you can't get money out of a dead man. So
yeah, getting $5,000 profit's enough.
Yeah, I agree with that. So that's the Las Vegas storyline.
Yes.
There's the Twin Peaks storyline. There's also the special agent Gordon Cole and Albert and Tammy Preston in South Dakota storyline. That's kind of the other big one.
Yeah, I enjoyed the Gordon Cole storyline more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
And I liked the whole Blue Rose stuff. I thought that was pretty cool in general.
Yeah, it gets expanded on quite a bit. It doesn't get explained at all in Fire Walk with Me. Chris Isaac talks about it a little bit, and then it's just left. Kiefer Sutherland asks him, "Are you going to explain the Blue Rose?" And he's like, "Nope," and because he wasn't in the inner circle yet, and the Blue Rose Task Force becomes really the central plot of the show.
Pretty much
the driving plot of the show.
The most interesting parts, I think, because after you stop rooting for Mr. C, because he's no longer just fucking up bad guys. Mm-hmm. He's like truly evil. You know, because it's like the difference between the Punisher, who's like doing bad things to bad guys, versus Rapist Punisher.
Rapist Punisher. You know, I was surprised Rapist Punisher lasted so many issues. It's like, wow, 7 issues.
Oh, God.
I didn't think it would go that long.
In this climate, it would last longer.
I know. It would.
The state of society.
It would have so many spin-offs.
Oh, they would be calling for more versions. We want more in the rapist verse. Because America, right? Okay. Oh, yeah. Maybe that's too cynical.
Well, so the way I take it is we've had... So Bob, Killer Bob, is literally the incarnation of the evil that men do, right?
Yeah.
He is Beelzebub, right? He's this...
I do love that. How Bob ultimately comes from Baal, which becomes Beelzebub, which becomes Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ancient Sumerian god becomes Bob.
It is pretty amusing.
But I'm glad to know that is not, you know, in their mythology or whatever, it's not just rando demon. That's Baal. Like, that's the big daddy.
It is. And he is the Lord of the Flies. This is the personification of the evil the men do. And he has been running rampant in Mr. C for 25 years.
Yeah.
And the world is a shittier place because of his influence. That's sort of my take on it, is he has done demonstrable damage to just Earth, period. Just being loose. But because they haven't been able, because he has all the sort of uncanny abilities of Dale Cooper to blend in, to assess things, to get where he needs to be.
Yeah, he's like a Batman level investigator.
Yeah. But also a vessel for ultimate evil.
I'm saying Dale is a Batman level investigator, and now Beelzebub has Dale's investigation and acuity and perception.
So we're living now in this world that we're in now with this political climate we have is the world that Beelzebub made for us.
Yeah, he used to host a show called The Apprentice.
It does come up that in the final dossier that Trump had the jade ring at one point.
Yeah, that he was wearing it.
And then basically
they never name it. They never say. They say the eponymous real estate magnate in front of the tower of his own naming.
Yeah, and the what's her name, the sexual adventuress from season 2. She.
Who got the mayor and the newspaper guy.
Yeah, she discovered that his fortune was a lie and took the ring back. It's interesting. Yeah, but that's my take on it is we live in the Bob timeline. Right now.
Yeah, we live in the Bob verse. We live in Punisher rapist verse, basically.
Right. Yeah.
The worst.
Cockney Freddy didn't punch him soon enough. It needed to happen earlier. I don't know. Any other storylines? I'm thinking of
storylines like, I mean, there are some interesting themes and stuff. Like, I like how it talks, like, so in this show, it does get into more of kind of the origins of the Black Lodge and the inhabitants. I like how this is sort of like, I like things that go way back in history and touch on events, and that was outlined in The Secret History of Twin Peaks, but then they came back with so many of those plots in this show that were never in season 2, let alone season 1.
Yeah, because we see how the atomic bomb, the Trinity test, that damn Oppenheimer, he broke the barrier essentially between the spirit plane and an ARG plane, and let these spirits have more free access to the material plane. Yeah, and
another note I wrote kind of in the storytelling thing was this series commits what I consider to be so everyone has their own pet peeves and cardinal sins that ruin shows and series. And this one did time travel, and I almost always hate time travel stuff because you can't think about it. It doesn't make sense. Also, it feels like lazy storytelling. Like Laura Palmer's not dead. We meet older Laura Palmer, blah, blah, blah. And all of that.
You're talking about Dale's time travel.
Yeah. I generally hate anything time travel-y, but they were sparing enough that it didn't ruin things for me, although I'm not sure they needed it. Like, there was enough reality distortion happening that just blatant time traveling so that Laura didn't actually die, I don't know if that was needed.
Well, it's the hubris of Dale Cooper and his White Knight syndrome, right?
Okay, yeah.
They won. They defeated Bob, right?
Yes.
And he could have had the happy ending right there, but he goes back into the lodge in order to travel back and then save Laura Palmer and fucks the whole timeline up.
Yeah. Messes everything.
He's punished for his hubris, right? Like, it's not like he goes back and saves her and everything is great. He goes back and saves her and, like, the world is irrevocably changed, and who knows if any of the people he knows even exist anymore. Like,
yeah, Ray Bradbury wrote a story about this. I know I'm referencing super modern popular things.
Yeah, Wrinkle in Time, or no, not Wrinkle in Time. The one where they shoot the dinosaur.
Yeah, This is just that
where the butterfly effect comes from.
It's not needed. Like, Lynch wasn't turning over a new leaf with this artistic decision. And I think that it actually kind of, it cheapened the whole series to undo episode 1.
Yeah.
Because everything was about Laura Palmer's death, and then the whole deal with Leland and Bob and all this stuff. Don't take that from us.
Yeah, because he erased the whole show.
Yeah. He erased everything. And I don't like that. Don't take this from me.
Yeah.
You know, like, I liked season 1. In fact, I loved season 1.
Season 1
it's one of my
season.
favorite single seasons of TV from any series. And I don't like it that it's the same thing as if the protagonist wakes up and it was all a dream.
Right.
I don't like that.
That would actually be thematically more appropriate.
Yeah. Dale wakes up in the lodge.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that's the day that Audrey's coming to his door, and he's like, oh, did I dream all of this?
Yeah.
You know, that would have been better.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think on a meta level, don't you think it's an indictment on the impulse, the nostalgia impulse to go back and revisit things? How you go back and you
ruined it.
And you actually ruin it by going back to it?
I think that might have been what they were saying, but I would have appreciated it if they didn't actually ruin it.
If they didn't actually ruin it? Well, luckily, the DVDs still exist.
I mean, yeah, it's not ruined, but since I know that's how it ended, I know.
Yeah, that's true. I suffered from this frustration also for several days. Like, it was something where I was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe that's how they ended this. Like, and I was very frustrated with it.
I would have rather had like a Sopranos ending.
To
show up at the Double R, order pie and coffee,
and just sit there in the booth,
like nothing ever happened, and then just give us a solid minute of him like taking a drink of coffee, eat a bite of pie, look over, give Norma a nod. You see Ed pull up in his truck.
Yeah.
Series over.
Yeah, you know what I actually like, and again, because of Dale's White Knight syndrome, and Tammy Preston calls this out in the book, in the final dossier, that this is his fatal flaw, that he has to save every girl or whatever that he encounters. When he gets there in Texas and he finds Laura, and he's like, Laura Palmer, and she's like, no, my name's whatever. And he'd be like, all right, sorry to bother you, ma'am. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
Get in the car, drive to Las Vegas where Janie E is, pop the marble out of Dougie Jones, slide right into that life.
Yeah.
That'd been fine. Sonny Jim will do a lot better with a real dad than a clone dad.
Oh, absolutely. That would have been totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, as far as personality flaws go, as far as what's your fatal flaw is, I try to save everybody. That's kind of like in an interview if they ask you like, what's your worst quality? I'm a perfectionist.
I always say I don't ask for help when I need it.
Yeah, I always say I try to do everything myself.
Yeah, it's true. It's
absolutely. I never want help.
Yeah.
So that's because I do things right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with. I have the same feeling. I think there's a reason why they did that. Frost compared it to Orpheus and Eurydice, right? Where he goes to Hades, to the underworld, to go and get her out, and he's supposed to not look back, which is what Cooper does. He looks back to make sure she's still with him, and then she disappears. And so he could have even gotten away with this, but he's trying to get away with too much.
Yeah, he got greedy. And I also wonder, and this is probably too meta, but were Lynch and Frost reaching too much when they decided to do this? And so their greed is what ruined this. So they not ruined it. You know, its legacy was changed. I actually think they did a good enough job to improve the legacy.
Yeah.
But it was was it a meta commentary
on their own
hubris of going back to this?
Well, Cooper is even though Lynch plays a character in the series, Cooper is his avatar, right?
Are you sure he's not Mark Frost's avatar?
No, who do I think Mark Frost
Maybe
is?
Diane.
I actually think that Mark Frost's avatar is Major Briggs.
Maybe. I like the Major. He's one of my favorites.
Because I think Mark Frost is the archivist, right? Because that's what Bridge refers to himself in the dossier as the archivist, and I think the archivist is Mark Frost.
And then Tina becomes his avatar when she's the new archivist. Mm-hmm. So truly, the archivist is Mark Frost.
Yes, that's my take on it.
I can see that. And I like that those books were published so that we would have a little more Mark Frost, because some of these things Lynch gets like totally wackadoo in his storytelling.
Yeah, so like we haven't really talked much about we did talk about episode 8 with the atomic bomb. Mm-hmm. But that's a full on like 1970s David Lynch movie. Yeah. Like once after Nine Inch Nails is done playing and we shift over to black and white, the whole rest of that thing is just it's the Lynch Oppenheimer basically.
Yeah, it's really crazy how this show shifts gears.
Mm-hmm. And it's the series, like it's not exactly the middle of the series, episode 8, but it's close to the middle. Yeah. And I think it is the end of the first act that we get that as sort of like an interlude. And it's probably I think the strongest episode out of the whole series. Like, it's just like it sits on its own pretty easily, I think.
Yeah, I think that was really, really strong. And this reminds me of how a novel is written, how there are different threads and plots and perspectives. Yeah. Different chapters follow different characters. Sometimes you have an interlude chapter or whatever. Yeah. And this really reminds me of how a novel is laid out.
Yeah. So I'd say like those first 7 episodes are like the first arc. Mm-hmm. Then you have the interlude of episode 8. Then 9 to 14 is the next arc, and then 15 to 18 is that right? The final arc?
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of back to back most of it, so the numbers
they all blur
together to me.
I got the part where I was getting frustrated with it. I know is in that 9 to 14 range, where I was like feeling
me too.
Like how long are we going to deal with like Dougie not knowing how to pee and stuff like that. Like I was just like, and getting new characters, and like I was just starting to get really frustrated. And then with 15 we start getting payoffs. Yeah. And 16 we start like ramping towards the climax of it, and then 17 and 18 a lot happen.
17 and 18 are kind of like one thing together.
But that 9 to 14 I was really like getting, I don't know, angry is too strong a word, but I was getting frustrated with the show in that period.
The word I would use is bored.
I did start looking at my phone anytime we sat down in a booth at the Roadhouse and a couple of girls start talking about drama. That's time to check emails. Like I would just check out of it. And then when Audrey finally shows up and she's referencing things that come from those conversations, I was like, oh, I didn't pay attention to any of this, so I don't know who any of the people that she's referencing are.
The Audrey storyline was really weird and unfulfilling.
That was also one of my major frustrations, but let's hold on to those for when we get to the what worked and didn't work.
So let's briefly talk about the visuals. We've really talked about the way this show looks a lot. This is the 4th episode and on this topic, and it really looks like the original, but with way more special effects added. Yeah, and notably generic special effects. Yeah, some of them look real bad.
Yeah, and I read what Buff is the VFX house that did the digital effects. They were given very light descriptions of what David Lynch wanted for these sequences. Often he would draw pictures for them of what he wanted, and like it's deliberately lo-fi, where it's generic assets, things like that, like just the sort of like water effect or static effect that they just have in their software. Cut the face away, like Sarah Palmer pulls her face off, generic static behind it. Like it's very off the shelf visual effects.
Yeah, some of them were extremely imperfect and deliberately had a almost schlocky quality to them, and
it
then
reminded me of like a student film.
Yeah, and then other parts they were really good, and they, like, for example, you mentioned episode 8,
the atomic bomb.
Like it really, like, it was a really striking portrayal of the Trinity nuclear test. That was really cool.
And that's where, and it's the same people doing the effects.
Yeah.
So either they spent all their time on that one, or it's a deliberate choice, like to use generic assets in these other things. I think the bomb episode hits so hard because you've only seen bad effects up until that point.
Yeah. Like, you've seen almost all bad. Like, like the glass box in the warehouse or whatever, and then, like, kind of the I don't know, they do violence pretty well, like the practical effects on the actors and stuff.
When they catch, like, a Judy type spirit, I don't know if it is Judy, but something like that in the box, and it shreds that couple that were there hooking up on the couch. Yeah. And even though, like, they clearly don't exist on the same plane, like the demon and the people, it's still very unsettling watching their faces get peeled off. Like, it's hard to watch.
It was pretty gnarly, like, which means it was pretty decent effects.
Yeah, but it looks fake, but it is effective, and I don't know how to quantify that.
It's like Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
it's fake, but
it tastes good.
It's pretty good.
Like, that's not what grape tastes like.
Yeah, this is purple flavor,
but it is delicious. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like it is sort of hearkening back to the sort of early Lynch indie film. Figure out how would you do it if you're doing it yourself, sort of thing. Like, how would a kid do this if they were making it themselves? Yeah,
he really does try to include some of that old school DIY in his kind of workman ethic in this stuff. Another thing that I thought was really interesting visually in this was how, like you mentioned before, how they would linger on certain scenes or whatever. There were a lot of close-up shots of different textures, like different fabrics, surfaces, objects. And he would really focus on things. And then you go to the scene. But it's like you got a good look at the tablecloth.
Yeah.
And then you start hearing Dougie's wife talking. It's like, oh, what's up with this?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time in the suburbs of Las Vegas.
Yeah, it did not look like a nice place to live, honestly.
No, and it's a bunch of empty houses, right? It's like all these developments.
It kind of reminded me of like, not Arrested. Oh man,
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad. Yeah, it looked just like Breaking Bad.
Yeah. That's possibly an influence on this. I think especially the Las Vegas stuff feels very Breaking Bad. And even the Texas stuff at the end of the series has a lot of Breaking Bad touch to it.
Absolutely.
It's very plausible. Lynch and or Frost, one of them is watching Breaking Bad.
I think everyone watched Breaking Bad.
It was a really good show. Yeah. So since we're talking visuals, cinematography is by Peter Deming, production design by Ruth DeJong, art direction by Kara Brower, costume design by Nancy Steiner, and VFX from Buff was the studio. The supervisors are Pierre Buffin, I guess it's named after him.
There you go.
And Stephanie Vogel, and VFX producer was Kristina Prilukova.
Okay.
So that's our visuals team. A lot of regular Lynch collaborators in there, but obviously the digital effects, that's a fairly new aspect.
Yeah, that stuff was crazy. There were a few things that I really liked, like of course the nuclear test. I thought that the glass box demon catcher thing, that was really an interesting set.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that whole thing. It was pretty cool.
That's all very early on, and you're like, we're so used to the show taking place just in ostensibly in Twin Peaks, and maybe Deer Meadow or whatever the other town, the dark Twin Peaks town,
Eagleton.
Yeah. We hate them because we're from Pawnee.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you go to New York right off the bat, there's something disorienting about it.
It seems so fancy.
Yeah,
like everything's nicer.
Like, that's the whole opposite end of the country. How are you? New York? What? Yeah, it's baffling, and then like everything about it is mysterious. The guy just watches this box.
Man, that'd be a hell of a job. I'd take that job.
It's very much college kid job, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I just sit here and stare at the box and change out SD cards every once in a while.
Perfect.
It's good money. Yeah. You work for a demon. There's that, but you didn't technically know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't know what happened to... I mean, probably the last guy who left that job was also shredded by a demon.
Yeah. Those are disposable workers, kind of American style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a very interesting, evocative set. There's a lot. Everywhere has its own... Every place has its own aesthetic. Where else we go? Buckhorn, South Dakota. We spent a lot of time there. I've been to South Dakota. That is what it looks like.
Yeah, South Dakota is like, this is a place.
It is. People choose to live here. It's not North Dakota where there's oil, and I understand why they're here. It's the other one. I don't quite get it, but people stay there.
And they get 2 senators.
Yeah. One for the half with the Mount Rushmore in it, and one for the other half with nothing in it.
So, I mean, you want to move on to audio?
Sure, because there's a lot to talk about with audio.
I mean, I thought it was cool how in the Roadhouse there were musical performances pretty much every episode, and it was really cool.
I've got all of them. Do you have favorites of the musical performances?
I mean, 9 Inch Nails, obviously, Eddie Vedder. There were the Chromatics.
Yeah,
there were some good ones.
Yeah, I liked. Ironically, one that I really liked was the band Trouble, which is not a real band. It's David Lynch's son, Riley, and Dean Hurley, who is the music supervisor for the series, and a couple of other guys. I really liked their song. Rebecca Del Rio's song I liked quite a bit. The Chromatics show up several times.
Yeah.
Old James Hurley got up there and did his "Just You" song from season 1.
I was happy to hear a little bit of nostalgia, and I was even happier that the actor of James, 25 years later, I could tell that he hadn't spent a day studying his craft.
Well, so his whole career got derailed because of health problems.
Oh, okay.
I think he's in A Few Good Men, and he had he's one of these people that had real complications from the medication Accutane.
Oh.
And he sued them, and it was a whole thing. But his career basically went in the ditch in the early 90s and didn't come back out, as far as I know.
Yeah, no shade. I don't hate the guy. Good old James Marshall, but he didn't go to acting school in the intervening time because he was the same. he was made out of wood.
Well, Shelley said James has always been cool, and I was like,
Has he? Have you ever met a cool person?
Bobby's always been cool, honestly.
Yeah, even Bobby, even face turn Bobby.
Yeah.
Cool. I like face turn Bobby.
Mm-hmm. Turned into a silver fox.
And he's an upstanding member of society. He's got a kid.
Yeah.
It's a good dude.
Kid didn't turn out great, but that's...
Yeah, you can't control him.
Yeah. So... let's see.
We got the Angelo Badalamenti's iconic music, of which they left out a lot of the plunky jazz.
Yeah,
Thank you.
They use Badalamenti's score very sparingly. So Dean Hurley did... There's 3 albums worth of music for this series.
Wow.
There is Angelo Badalamenti's score. There's Dean Hurley's a record basically of ambient music.
Cool.
For the interludes and stuff, and like weird electric sounds and stuff. He's somewhere in between musician and sound designer. And then there is a compilation album of all the Roadhouse performances.
All right. That's probably pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's Hurley does a great job, I think, of knitting them all together and into a soundscape, kind of like doing what Trent Reznor used to do before he did full-on scores.
Yeah.
Like, I take like needle drops and existing orchestral pieces and put interstitial weird vibes in there and knit this all together into a soundscape.
Yeah, so this has the best music and sound of any of the Twin Peaks properties.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with that.
Pretty hands down. Yeah. It was very well done.
And when they drop in like the Badalamenti pieces, they hit you like a ton of bricks, because like part of the problem in season 2 is they're hammering you with the Laura theme, like every time you're supposed to feel emotional, and like and the like the jazzy thing when something funny's happening or whatever, and they really are just hammering you with it. Whereas when they drop in Laura's theme, like when Bobby walks into the conference room at the sheriff's station, and they've got all the old record boxes out, and he just sees it there, and he gets really like verklempt about it, right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, Jesus, it's been 25 years. And they drop Laura's theme in right there. It's like, oh, the weight of it comes with that music. And then they pull it back, and we don't hear it again until like it's deployed really strategically at emotional impact points.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that this was really well considered, and I think being that it's 25 years later, there had been a lot of work done in TV and film with regards to music and all of that, and they really took their lessons from modern media, and I think it stands up.
Yeah, and it's more, to give credence to the idea that this is like a mega film or whatever, it is more cinematic to deploy the music this way.
For sure. I mean, that's all I pretty much had on audio.
Yeah.
We could go through the casting, but we've done these quite a bit.
Normally I just copy pasta the cast into my notes, right? And usually it's around like under 20 people, and we kind of make our way through most of it. It's over 100 people, so that's just not going to work. So I grabbed people that I wanted us to kind of talk about and set them aside from the enormous cast.
Yeah.
And so I thought we'd just kind of go through those back and forth like we usually do.
Sure, go ahead.
Starting off, Kyle MacLachlan.
Of course.
He is, like you said, he's playing 2.5, 4 characters maybe.
Yeah.
He is Agent Cooper. He is Agent Cooper as Dougie Jones. He is Dougie Jones, and he is Mr. C. And they are all distinct individuals.
Yeah, I think Kyle Mack pretty much killed it in this role. He's amazing. He's a really excellent actor, and he's the star.
Yeah, he's the above the credits name, right? At the end, the musical guest starts playing, and it says starring Kyle MacLachlan every episode.
Yeah.
He's the MVP.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Lynch couldn't get him to be the above the credits guy in Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
He knew he needed him.
Yeah, totally. The next one I have is low-key, someone who's become one of my favorite characters, Dana Ashbrook as Deputy Sheriff Bobby Briggs.
Yeah, I have him near the top too.
Yeah.
He did such a great job, and I really enjoyed the journey of this character. I was talking to a friend of mine at work who I talked about watching Twin Peaks and doing this podcast and whatnot, and he told me he'd started watching Twin Peaks season 1, and he was just a few episodes in, and he was talking about his opinions on the characters and stuff, and I told him, you would be surprised. It's kind of like reading the first book of A Song of Ice and Fire,
and Jamie,
and then telling someone, you finished it. They're on the first book, telling someone that Jamie is one of your favorite characters. They just would not believe it, but that's Bobby.
That is Bobby. Bobby has such a powerful arc, and you see it like in the original series. You see hints of it. Like there's that before Major Briggs disappears, when they sit down at the Double R, and Bobby's just doesn't have time for his parents.
He's like a sneering dipshit.
Yeah, and Major Briggs just kind of tells him about the future because Briggs has been traveling in the beyond and he knows things.
Yes.
The fireman showed him stuff, and he's talking about Bobby's future and the kind of the immense pride that he feels for the man his son is going to become. And we see that man in this series that Major Briggs was proud of.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Like that's just a hell of an arc to do.
And Dana Ashbrook really performed it well just throughout. Just such an excellent performance.
Yeah, and clearly he's messed up shit with Shelley. They don't really explain it, but him and Shelley aren't together anymore, but they have this daughter, and the daughter is troubled. And Shelley's new boyfriend comes to the Double R while they're having like a parent moment with their daughter, and Shelley runs off to smooch with the guy, and you just see the pain on his face of that this is the one thing in my life that I shouldn't have messed up, and I did. The regret. Yeah. And Big Ed has him sit down with him kind of in a little bit after that, and Big Ed's a man that knows a lot about regretting choices with women.
He's got that Hurley luck.
Yeah. And so it's just that's some of the, even though, it's one of those storylines that doesn't get resolved. We don't get any closure on it, but it is also one of the most compelling things to me in the show.
Yeah. It's very realistic. I think that's kind of it's a broken home, a guy who cleaned himself up, but he couldn't salvage the relationship, and that's it. And you just have to be okay with that.
Yeah,
you have to move on.
That's life.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I got next on my list, actually just sort of out of order. I wanted to pull out Everett McGill, Ed Hurley.
Yes.
I love this performance. 25 years later, he's kind of an old dude, but he's still kind of a strapping old guy.
Yeah, he is.
And I love his haircut. It's very modern. Yeah. And I feel like there's so much powerful emotion portrayed by this actor. He goes from absolute stunning shocked when he talks to Nadine, all the way to elation. I'm gonna do the thing. I'm gonna tell her. I'm gonna ask her to marry me. And then when he thinks she's blowing him off, he's just at the dark night of the soul. Oh, yeah. He's paralyzed with shock, but he's playing it cool. He's waiting for her because she didn't say bug off. Yeah, she just brushed him off. Yeah. And so he just plays it cool, and his patience is rewarded. Yeah. The performance was a roller coaster. Yeah. I felt a lot of empathy for Big Ed. Yeah. And it was great.
And it is enriched by what we know from the book, because our guy Hawk writes at length about Big Ed and his dumbassery.
Yeah.
And so we know a lot of backstory, but you don't need any of that. It's all on his face. Like, it's all in his acting. And that's another one. He was fully retired. David Lynch called him at the number he had for him, which was, I think, his mother's house, who had passed away.
Ooh.
And he just happened to be in the house because he was like packing stuff up in boxes, and the landline rung, and it's Everett, it's David. Like, is this a good number? It's like, no, this isn't even my house. It's my mother's house. And so he got him to come back and do this. Obviously, he's Stilgar from Dune. He's one of these. He's a Lynch kind of guy. So he was happy to come back, and I'm so glad he did. It's like, I don't want to spoil later parts of the podcast, but this is one of my favorite things in the
I think that
in the episode.
If it had been a lesser actor, if we had been dealing with a James Marshall playing this arc, it wouldn't have hit.
Well,
but
he just couldn't do it. I mean, let's just be James Marshall, bless his soul, could not have sat there with the weight of the world on his face the way Everett McGill does.
Everett McGill gave a flawless performance. Yeah. It was good.
Even just the first time we see let's bring the ladies into this, Peggy Lipton as Norma.
Oh yeah,
when she's sitting there
I really like this
with
performance.
The sleazy franchise guy, and Bobby and Big Ed are sitting in it. They moved to a different booth. They were sitting with her, and they got out to make way for the business guy. And the whole conversation back and forth between Peggy and this guy, you're watching Ed's face while he's talking to Bobby and he's engaged, but he's always got one eye on Norma through the entire conversation.
Yeah.
And like when she looks at him, his face lights up. And when she looks at the other guy, his face falls again. And it's just like, top tier, Sigma level acting.
Yeah. People that want to become actors should watch Everett McGill.
Yeah.
He's too good.
I mean, he makes writing that plastic sandworm look as majestic as with Timothy Chalamet.
I mean, he's
the new sandworm.
Yeah, he's amazing in Lynch's Dune. So what do we expect? Same with Kyle Mack.
Yeah,
he brought his favorites with him.
Yeah. So my next one is Catherine E. Coulson as Margaret Lanterman, aka the Log Lady.
Man, this performance was heavy.
Gutting. It is so hard. So she was obviously just dealing with cancer.
She was very sick.
She's days away from passing away when they film this stuff. She was going to get on a plane and fly up from Ashland up to SeaTac to go and film this stuff. And one of her friends went around her back and contacted David Lynch and says, she's not up to doing this. If you want to film her, you need to get cameras down here and you need to do it soon. And so he sent a camera crew down to Ashland, and they filmed all these scenes. And I don't know. I feel emotional just talking about it. Honestly, like, there's so much weight watching this woman who's actively dying while they're filming this stuff.
And the character, the Margaret character, when you're introduced to her in season 1, you think she's just like a kooky, like kind of like a, like a town fool or something. But as if you read the book, The Secret History, and then you watch more and more, she's just saying the true shit that nobody wants to hear or nobody knows. Yeah. She is the wisdom of the city.
Yeah. Like the Oracle of Twin Peaks.
Yeah. And in the true like Greek sense. Right. She is the character is expertly written, I would say, throughout the whole series. You can tell this was not a on-the-fly character by Lynch, like writing Laura Palmer and Bob into everything, This was a core fundamental underpinning. Her backstory is tragic. and then her final arc is also extremely heavy.
Yeah.
It's a great performance and really excellent writing.
Yeah. And maybe this is the time to mention it. A whole lot of these people died, like, after they filmed this series. She passed away. Peggy Lipton, who played Norma, has passed away. Robert Forster, who played Frank Truman, has passed away.
Wow.
Obviously, David Lynch, David Bowie, Tom Sizemore passed away. A significant amount of this cast, this is their swan song, like their final performance.
The last few episodes of this, it brought me back.
Yeah.
The last few episodes, it, like, I was out, but then I was back in.
Which, ironically, is the same thing that happened with season 2.
Yeah.
Season 2 similarly has that saggy part before the final act kicks in, which I thought was very, very odd that it followed such a similar pattern to season 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other characters I could really comment on, but for me, like, Catherine Coulson and Everett McGill's performances, they were impossible to beat.
Oh, yeah. The next person I have on my list is Eamon Farron as Richard Horn, the fucking worst kid in the world. Runs over a little boy with a rental truck.
That character was gratuitous in his horribleness.
So evil. Like, he's arguably more evil than Mr. C because it doesn't seem focused on anything.
It's like, okay, I understand that the existential evil, like the devil, is doing evil shit. He's the devil. This guy's just a fucking dude.
But he's the devil's son, technically. Like, he is the offspring of the devil. And then Mr. C sacrifices him to the White Lodge, basically, like, go up on that rock and see what happens. Struck by lightning, he says, farewell, my son.
It could, he didn't deserve any better than that.
He really, you just think like, like, did he get transported somewhere or disintegrated? I don't even care.
I just thought, man, I hated that guy anyway.
Yeah. You couldn't pick a better guy to get struck by lightning.
He was absolutely terrible. I liked, I really liked Ben Horn. I thought Richard Bamer, that character, he also did a face turn. So at the end of the season 2, in the last episode, 2 episodes ago, I was positing that a lot of his philanthropy and ecological awareness building and all of that was just a ploy against the development and all that stuff. No, he just stays true to being kind of a good dude. I mean, him and his brother get into like legal weed growing and all this agribusiness, but like, which I don't have a problem with. No. And I think that actually that character had a glow up. Season 2, I was pretty down on General Lee.
Who relitigates the Civil War so the South wins.
Yes.
And then reinvents himself as a good guy.
Yeah.
He has, despite the fact that he has not received any rewards for it and is still karmically paying for his evil deeds, has stayed true to trying to do good.
Yeah, like when he's told that, like, his grandson?
Yeah, his grandson
is the one that killed that little boy, and the mom is in the hospital or whatever. He's like, yeah, of course, I'll cover all the bills.
Yeah,
he's just like he's gobsmacked that this bad thing had happened and that his family was involved at all, and so he felt a responsibility toward them. And that's not everyone would do that.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
And it is I think Ben Horn, we don't get a ton of time with him. He's just sort of hollowed out, I feel like, by the stuff that happened before. And it is fascinating. Who plays Jerry Horn? I know I have that in my notes.
Oh, yeah.
David Patrick Kelly.
That character was bonkers in a good way.
I just, like, every time we cut to Jerry in the woods because his edible hit too hard and he got lost in the woods. I'm like, will someone go look for Jerry Horn? Because he's going to die from exposure. Like, you can't be out there.
No, you can't keep Jerry Horn down.
Yeah.
That guy is a world-traveling weirdo with kind of supernatural charisma. Everyone likes him.
Yeah.
And he just gets by. He's like the dude.
Yeah, he's sort of like the dude. And, I mean, we won't really ever find out, but he gets zapped through a portal to Wyoming. And
yeah,
I would just love to know what he thought about his time on the other side. Like, I mean, I think because he's tripping so hard, he really would. No one would think like, yeah, I saw a giant, and like, how would you explain it? So David Patrick Kelly as Jerry Horn. I feel like over 4 episodes we've never talked about him, and he's always been
a fun, weird character that has always brought a lot. A character that I really didn't like through most of the series, but I think they really brought her around, was Nadine.
Yeah.
And the Doctor with his crazy podcast,
Dr. Amp
vodcast thing. I loved that.
I subscribed. I'm a Patreon for Dr. Amp. I've got that gold shovel hanging in my front window.
You know, there are stands like that for so many podcasters.
Yeah. You'd be better off listening to Dr. Amp than Joe Rogan.
Oh, yeah. Is Dr. Amp a real thing? It would be cool if it was.
Yeah. Russ Tamblyn should do it. He should do a Dr. Amp podcast.
And I really liked the Nadine story. It was short, it was sweet, but it was good.
Yeah, I was very down in our first episode, very down on Dr. Amp. I thought he was an illegitimate,
a shyster.
Yeah, an illegitimate, unethical therapist. He has taken the proverbial shovel and dug himself out of the shit, and he is sharing the shovel with others to dig themselves out. And so, yes, I support Wendy Robbie, Nadine, finally setting Big Ed free. She should give Mike a call, see what he's been up to all these years.
Yeah, Mike.
But yeah, I liked their arc quite a bit. And from like the classic cast, someone we keep saying we're going to talk about and then never remember to do it is Grace Zabinski as Sarah Palmer.
Oh yeah, that's true. The mom.
Yeah, who she has, I guess, Judy inside of her, or some sort of demonic entity that feeds on the Garmonbosia of human suffering. Eats a trucker's face at the other bar in town.
She gets totally wackadoo.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I thought she looked kind of old in the first season, but she only looks moderately older now.
Yeah. Just like her hair has gone gray, but yeah, otherwise the face looks pretty much the same. We just check in with her a few times throughout the series, and she's clearly wrestling with literally or metaphorically with the demon.
Yeah, she's got the devil all inside her. She's like Beetlejuice.
Yeah. Her demon's running all through me.
Exactly.
She does. Yeah, and it's, her husband had Beelzebub in him. Yeah. She had the Judy inside of her. And they made a moonchild with each other. But she's just been on her own. Just,
you know what? Just totally aside, totally unrelated. This show called, like the evil is Judy, right? Yeah. Like total evil. I love unscripted television. I've watched quite a bit of RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah.
If a queen calls another queen their Judy, it's like their bestie.
Oh, really?
So whenever they're like, "Oh, it's Judy," I was like, "This is cognitive dissonance."
No, Judy is good.
Like your good Judy is like your friend. Like, you're my good Judy.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was Jowdy. Over time, it became Judy.
Yeah, I mean, they're very Lynch. Yeah. But yeah, that's that performance was really good. Yeah. I really like that. And then as far as new characters, because we really been talking about the nostalgia acts.
Yeah.
I really like Krista Bell's Agent Tammy Preston. I thought that character was great.
I love Tammy Preston, and I don't know if it is the book or Krista Bell.
Just both.
It is. She's stunning. Like, she's a beautiful young woman. The character, like, she's just a good agent. Crackerjack agent.
Is she young?
Like in her 30s. She's a musician.
She's the same age as you, bro.
No way, really?
Yeah.
I don't even have to feel bad for looking at her.
She's born the same year.
All right. It's game on, Christabel. I'll take those thoughts out of thought jail. Let them run loose. Yeah. I like her a lot.
Yeah, she is great. Obviously, she's beautiful, but the performance was really, really good.
It is, and in my sort of fantasy third book, it's her trying to, as the only person that remembers the old timeline.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's cool because they all, whenever she questions them about things, they all have like, they fuzz out and then they answer, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have paradox.
That's the way the Cultists, the way the book, the final dossier, to spoil the book.
Yeah.
But if you've watched this show and you listen to this podcast, you already know how this ends. Evil is defeated, but Cooper fucks up the timeline. She remembers the old timeline.
Yeah.
Because she's been actively writing a book about it.
Because she is the archivist.
Yeah, she has become the archivist. And so what I would imagine if you were going to continue that story, it becomes about her tracking down Cooper and figuring out what happened, which I would read.
Oh, absolutely.
Mark Frost, please write the next Tammy Preston book.
If Mark Frost writes any more Twin Peaks material under any dossier, whatever, I will read it.
Yeah.
He is a really good writer.
Yeah. And so the rest of their the Blue Rose task force is David Lynch as director Gordon Cole.
He was pretty good.
He's arguably the lead of the series.
Yeah, he's one of the better characters. Yeah. He's enjoyable.
The late Miguel Ferrer as Special Agent Albert Rosenfeld. Mm-hmm. Again, one of his last performances. He's also dealing with, I think, cancer while they're filming.
And he was good.
He is, and Albert has a great arc because Albert is such a fucking prick when we first meet him, and even by the end of season 1, he's hugging Sheriff Harry.
Yeah.
And Albert always is a curmudgeon, but he's got a heart of gold.
Yeah, he's an extremely prickly lawful good.
Yeah. And then the deputized into the Blue Rose task force, or brought back in, is Laura Dern as Diane Evans.
Yeah, that character was well acted. Yeah. She was an abuse victim, but she had to reckon with the idea that the situation was not Dale, it was a demon. Yeah. And Dale didn't do that to her, but it was in the guise of Dale, and so it was like all this crazy psychological stuff.
And then she's not even Diane.
Yeah,
she's a tulpa. She's a demonic construct. The real Diane is hiding in the White Lodge.
Yeah, I don't know if I liked that because it sort of cheapened all that performance. Did it?
I don't know.
It's sort of like deleting the past. I don't like that.
You don't like that? Yeah. When she starts to realize that she's not Diane, that's a hell of a scene right there. Yeah. Right before and she pulls the gun to shoot Gordon because Mr. C is controlling her. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that all landed for me. Laura Dern, good actor.
Yeah, that was a good character, a good scene.
Yeah,
yeah. So I mean, I think that's pretty much most of the.
Well, we got the Vegas cast.
Oh, okay.
We've got Naomi Watts as Janie E. Jones.
That's true. She's a pretty big name.
I fucking love Janie E. Jones.
The portrayal was really good, but the character wasn't my cup of tea.
Oh,
She was kind of a harridan.
I love how she is fucking laying into Dougie because he's a philanderer and generally a no good Nick. But she can't help but love him. Like, she's like yelling at him and like, where'd you get this money? Blah, 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 blah. And he just sits there staring blankly. And she goes, I'll go make you a sandwich. Like, always at the end of every time she kind of unloads on him, she always still takes care of him afterwards. Yeah. And when Ike the Spike comes to kill them, she chokes the little man from behind. And I just thought, like, get you a wife that can do that. Like, you're karate chopping a dwarf with an ice pick, and she'll choke him from behind. Janie E has hands.
She was ride or die for Dougie. Like, I did appreciate her dedication. She just, like, her constant harping was just, I was like, oh God. He's a special needs man.
Be nice to Dougie. I was just honestly, I'm enamored with her harping on him. Like, I was so charmed by her. Every time I was like, he deserves it. Dougie has been a bad husband to you, and you're a formidable woman who will choke a dwarf, who will strong arm.
But Dougie brought a bag of several $100,000 home.
Yeah, she made him a sandwich.
I know. That's definitely the most expensive sandwich of all time.
Yeah. So, also in Las Vegas, we've got Jim Belushi and Robert Knepper as the Mitchum brothers, who are ruthless gangsters who are going to kill Dougie. But
then they become like his benefactors.
His best friends and patrons, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They buy his kid a jungle gym set, and they're like, buy him a new car.
It's a baffling performance that ultimately I was completely charmed by both of them.
Yeah, I liked the gangsters by the end. At the beginning, I was like, oh man, these guys, they're going to do some damage. And then they're totally nice dudes.
Yeah, and when Cooper is back and he explains the whole situation to them, and they're like, we don't usually get along with lawmen. And he goes, boys, I'm here to attest you two both have hearts of gold. That's going to change. You are now lawmen yourselves. That stuff was all fun. How about on the spiritual plane? We've got Carl Stryokin as the fireman and Joy Nash as Senorita Dido in the White Lodge.
Yeah, those are really weird performances. Very stylized. The voices are modulated, and it was hard for me to really appreciate those as characters. They almost were like set pieces.
That's fair. Yeah, like I don't have a good sense of them as performers. Like, they mostly stand there and look intense.
Yeah, they were cast for their appearance.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so many guys that are that tall and look like that.
You need an 8-foot tall dude that looks like Lurch.
Mm-hmm. Al Strobel as Philip Gerard, a.k.a. Mike, who has stepped up and filled in the space that his missing arm used to play as the exposition guy in the Black Lodge.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yeah. Jennifer Jason Leigh and Tim Roth as the Hutchins assassins that are after Dougie. Seem like they're on loan from a Tarantino movie.
Yeah, it was kind of a bit part. A lot of those things, a lot of these little vignette things, they really feel like David Lynch really just wanted to include this element.
Yeah.
And so they kind of made it work.
It really felt like they were like he borrowed them from some Tarantino film. Like just picked them out of it and dropped them into this one as minions for Mr. C.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They're too big of actors to not mention.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but they were intentionally doing bit parts. Like when Lynch was asked about casting, I was watching an interview and they asked him like, "How did you cast? Like, did you know that this role was for this person?" Blah blah blah. And he was very, very not useful in his responses. He would just say, "When I talk to somebody and I know who there should play.
Yeah.
When you know, you know. I just get a feeling about it, and that's the character for them. That's it. So, like, when he read Agent Dale Cooper, he just knew that was Kyle.
Yeah.
There was no casting call. It was just, this is Kyle, and then this guy is going to be Everett, you know, like, it was just obvious.
He talks about that in Catching the Big Fish, his sort of philosophical treatise book, how he never has people audition. He just has conversations with them and just imagines the parts for them.
I like that. I actually like job interviews that are that way, where it's just sort of a conversation, and they just decide if it's a right fit or not.
Yeah.
I prefer that over crazy, weird, massive casting calls that feel shoehorned.
Yeah. I mean, there's a million people, but that we've got through all the ones that I felt we needed to talk about.
Yeah, I felt like there was like a solid top 10 in here, and then there was a lot of bit parts.
Yeah. I mean, like, we didn't even mention Matthew Lillard, who is a name actor.
Oh yeah, and his part was really well done.
Yeah.
Matthew Lillard is a fantastic actor. His range is intense. Like, you watch him in here or some of the comedies that he's done. Like, this guy, he was Shaggy in Scooby-Doo.
He's actually, since Casey Kasem died, he is Shaggy in everything. Anytime you need a Shaggy voice, it's Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, Lillard is great. I'm a big fan. He's a big D&D player. He does like live D&D play and stuff. He there's a show called Faster Purple Worm Kill Kill. He's the guy behind that.
Okay.
He's like a big time nerd. He's in my universe. So I'm a fan.
Yeah, there's so many, like Ashley Judd is in this. There's so many people
that you just immediately recognize.
Michael Cera shows up as Wally Brando.
Yeah. When I saw like on there, I was like, Michael Cera in Twin Peaks. You know, those guys are just working for spec, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, they just want to be in Twin Peaks.
Well, so like Michael Cera, literally, like, he went to David Lynch's house for a transcendental meditation class.
Nice.
And they just were chatting after meditating or whatever, and he's like, I've got a part for you. You know, like, it's just like that.
Yeah, you got to be near the guy so he can decide what you're right for.
Yeah. You're just like, you know, he's the perfect guy to be Andy and Lucy's son.
Yeah.
So anyways, there's more people than we can reasonably discuss, but if we didn't mention your favorite, it's not because they weren't good. It's just because
there's just too many.
We can only podcast for so long.
Yeah.
So we get into the wrap-ups.
Yeah.
What's your personal highlight?
So this is tough because it's a series. We don't do series that often. We almost always just do movies or music.
This was so much more than I bargained for.
When you said you wanted to do all 3 seasons and the movie, I was like, oh, man. Yo. I was really...
What I said was we could do I gave you a number of David Lynch movies that we could do, or we could do Twin Peaks, and you picked Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah, because I like Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
So okay, my highlight from this, I had a hard time finding one. So I write my notes as I'm watching. I have a laptop next to me, and but then it happened, and I knew that was my moment.
Okay.
And it's not something crazy. It's just in episode 16 when the real Agent Dale Cooper returns as Agent Dale Cooper. I wanted this from episode 1.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it.
When he comes out of his coma?
Yeah. When I was craving this. I had slogged through 15 episodes of Dougie Jones or whatever. And I finally got Dale Cooper. Yeah. That was my personal highlight. I loved that moment. It was there were a couple others that I was thinking, like, if I can't find one, I'm definitely doing the Ed and Norma scene, because that is one of the best scenes. But what I really liked the best was when I got what I wanted.
Yeah. I am the FBI. Like, yeah, you
exactly.
are. Like, it's so...
Yeah.
Yes, that is. He says, "Doctor, will you give me I forget how he says it, but he basically he's pulling off the EKG and everything, and he's like, yeah, he's give me the clean bill of health, and he's like, He's like, yeah, you're very healthy. He's like, all right, give me my suit. Like, and he's just like, I've got to get to Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it was just a moment, and I was very happy. How about you? What was your personal highlight?
So mine, it's kind of, I'm going to double dip because they're both in the same episode. Episode 15, the Ed and Norma scene.
Yeah, very good.
Because Ed comes in. Nadine has walked all the way from their house up to the gas farm with her gold shovel, and she sets Ed free. She's out of the shit, and she just tells him, like, you have stuck with me through loyalty through all this time, and I've always known it was wrong, and you need to go and live your life. And he goes to Norma, and she's about to have a business meeting. Unbeknownst to him, she's about to sell her half of the franchise and just keep the Double R and cut ties with this businessman.
Yeah.
And so Ed comes in, says, Nadine's giving me my freedom. And she goes, oh, hold on a second. Douchebag is here.
And just brushes him off.
Yeah. And Ed sits down, and like you said, he's got the weight of the world on his face. Like, he's just sitting there like, I waited too long. Hurley luck strikes again. And they're having their conversation over there, and Ed is like disassociating hard, staring at his cup of coffee. And Norma walks over behind him after she gives the guy his walking papers, and you just see her hand go on his shoulder, and they turn around, and they're finally free of everything and can be together. And it's one of the few like tight little bows that this show gives you.
Yeah, there's it's one of the few things that finally fully pays off, and it's been happening since episode 1.
Yeah, and like since really 45 years, right? Like,
yeah, since before Vietnam.
Since 1978, the year they were the winningest team in high school. Like, it has been that long. And they finally get together, and it's just like, it's beautiful. Like, it's just so well acted, and just, you know, the weight of their age comes through, and just everything.
Yeah, I think that there's a stereotype in media that love and falling in love is for the young.
Yeah.
But these are people who are, you know, they're older. They're you know, seniors. They're over 60, and they are falling in love again.
Yeah.
And it's great. And I really enjoy that depiction.
And like, crucially, like, they have basically the same life goals, but they've just had, because of choices, they've had things that kept them apart. Ed owns the local gas station. She owns the diner. They are content to be small business owners in the town they grew up in.
Yeah.
That is what they want.
They're happy with their lot.
They're happy with that. And the world needs people like that also, you know?
Absolutely.
So that one is just beautiful. And then the other really heavy emotional scene in that same episode is when the log lady calls Hawk to tell him that she's dying. And she sort of like narrates her own death, right? Like, her logs, like, the log is turning gold, and death is just a change, you know, like,
yeah.
And it has so much weight because this woman literally is dying, and the character is so enmeshed in, like, her and the character have sort of over the years kind of become one person.
Yeah.
And it just, again, like the Ed and Norma scene, the scene just has so much weight behind it. And Hawk just sort of sits with her on the phone and tells her goodbye, and then goes out and tells Andy and Lucy that Margaret's passed away. And you see the light go out in her cabin. And it was like, just perfect. So, like, fuck you. I cried twice in this episode, but like, it's the best kind of tears. Like,
yeah, it was in a series that has had me like basically saying this is bullshit all the way to, oh my God, this is so real.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. The pendulum has swung
swings wildly.
like all the way.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. What worked for you?
I really enjoyed the consistency here.
Okay.
I feel like they were true to the characters as they should have been. And they didn't try to do lots of wild, crazy things. I mean, whatever the multiple personalities of Cooper or the fractured soul or whatever. Yeah. That aside, I think the characters in Twin Peaks are who they needed to be.
Yeah.
And I really like that James was carved out of wood for 25 years. Yeah, and then next bullet point, Ed and Norma finally getting engaged. You just talked about it. I loved that scene. Yeah. I'm a little bit of a romantic at heart. I enjoy some good Jane Austen novels and the like. And this was good. This is good for the heart.
They are a good gothic couple, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He's like Mr. Rochester. He's got a crazy wife up in the attic.
Exactly. Yeah. So this was great. I really enjoyed that. Because it was a long-term payoff. We've watched so many hours of Twin Peaks.
This was so much more shit than I thought it was going to be when we said,
I didn't realize there were like 22 episodes in season 2 and 18 in season 3.
Yeah.
Then lastly, I say the weird Black Lodge and White Lodge animation stuff, it did its work. Yeah. It was weird as shit. And you could tell this is not Earth.
Yeah.
This is insanity. This is like bizarro world. And so I really appreciated that because, that Nightmare Before Christmas-esque animated tree with a brain on a stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
The evolution of the arm.
Yeah, it was crazy. All right, so what about you? What worked for you?
Very similar stuff. The cast returning and new. We've just been half an hour going through all of them and didn't mention all of them. It's an incredible cast. And, like as much as I loved all the time with the old cast, I came to love a lot of the new cast as well. The Atomic Bomb episode 8. Not only do we get a full Nine Inch Nails performance in that episode,
that was pretty sweet.
We get a whole black and white mini film about the Trinity test, about Sarah Palmer's childhood, about the White Lodge and the Black Lodge, and Judy and Bob and the Moonchild. We get a dialogue-free mythology dump, and it's just deal with this art film in the midst of all of this.
And I was down.
Yeah, it's okay. They're shooting a marble out of a sousaphone, and it's going to Earth, and it's got Laura's face in it. I don't know what this means, but I'm riveted by this. And I guess piggybacking on that, my next thing was the lore. I'm just fascinated by the mythology of this world and the worlds that surround it. And it really gives you a lot of stuff to chew on.
Absolutely.
What didn't work for you?
Oh, no.
We're going to say the same things.
I got a lot of bullet points.
Oh, okay. I only have 3.
First thing, my bullet points have sub-bullet points.
Okay.
The pacing of this season, just like season 2, it was so slow. The first several episodes didn't feel like they were going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I did not enjoy how they would linger on seemingly mundane, boring things. Okay. Like just hang forever. Like seriously, I timed it because I even went back. I backed it up and I looked at my phone and I timed it.
How long did that awkward pause?
There was a guy who was sweeping the floor
at the Roadhouse
while music played for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Sweeping the floor. Come on. My time is worth something. And okay.
Which episode is where is that in the?
I don't even remember. I
know what scene you're talking about.
I wrote it down. I was not happy. Like when a scene is lame and I turn, I'm like clacking away on the keyboard. Yeah. Okay, so I did not enjoy the effects in this because they were so inconsistent.
Okay.
This was made in 2017. There are some really good things made in the teens with really good effects, things that stand up to this day. There were things made in like 2009 that were better than this looking.
Yeah.
So this thing just... the effects where some of it looked like a B movie, like intentional B movie, like pulling your face back and being like a weird green screen static thing on there. It was like, it looks so cheesy. Give me consistency. Either we're all schlocky brain trees and static faces, or we're all Trinity nuclear tests. Like, give me consistency. That just didn't work. Okay. So, and then finally, and this has been a thing through the whole thing, and it was commented on by my wife, and it was commented on by me. Lynch has a fucking thing about violence against women, sexual violence as women, and just regular ass violent violence. And it's not always for good storytelling. Sometimes it's just sprinkled in. It's just for spice so that you know, oh, this is a bad place. How do you know? Because that guy's choking the shit out of a woman. Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you thinking of like when Mr. C is in the hotel room with that girl, maybe episode 2 or 3?
Yeah,
and
early on.
He's just punching her in the face.
Yeah, just nothing. And there's no story, there's no interesting thing there.
Yeah.
And it's just, it was gratuitous, sometimes seemingly random, and then like whatever, the Bobby Horn or whatever his name is, the kid that who that guy is just a psychopath. Like no good. And
he strong arm robs his grandma.
Yeah, that scene was brutal.
Yeah.
Like, I understand, you know, he's a bad guy or whatever, and you know, there are people who rob their grandparents. But geez, across 3 seasons and a movie, Lynch has unresolved issues with women. Yeah. And it's very clear because, you know, you use fridging a character as like, you know, you're saying that it was bad storytelling because they did this. He would go beyond fridging and just casual murder and casual rape for effect. It's like, bro, you're a better storyteller. Or maybe you're not. Maybe it's Mark Frost that's a better storyteller. But I did not enjoy that aspect of this. And I think it was completely unnecessary. It just made me cringe so many times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen this guy literally run over a little kid.
Yeah.
And he knew he did it. Like, because he says, I told him to move. Like, it's not like he didn't see him.
Yeah, we get it. He's a bad guy. Got it. Moving on.
So you don't need to see him, like, threaten the woman at the roadhouse and beat up his grandma and, like...
And then the lady in the trailer.
Oh God.
That was so brutal.
The lady in the trailer, and that one goes on for days because she crawls out of the trailer.
Yeah, it never stops. And it was just like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
This is gratuitous. I understand you're trying to get a reaction, but at a certain point, it's just you're cheaply pushing a button and you're not telling a good story here.
Yeah.
So what about you? What didn't work?
So first one, same as yours, the pacing. As much as like everyone's critical of season 2, this season is paced exactly the same way that season 2 was.
For sure.
Like where it sets up a bunch of stuff, then a big lull, and then a rush to finish it at the end. And like it's the exact same pace that season 2 had, and there's no one else to blame it on. Like this was a deliberate choice. This is just how they wanted to do it. And it's hard. Like if I was watching week to week instead of like powering through it, do I come back after episode 10, like for episode 11? Like, oh, is it the Dougie Jones show for another episode? Like, would I come back for it? I don't know. Like, I'm all for, subverting the audience expectations and whatever. But if you are actively losing your audience, and numbing them, it's like you said, that's just not good pacing. Even if it's intentional, it's not effective. Number 2, pointless Roadhouse characters.
Oh God, how many pointless characters do we have in this?
There's so many just random people, and you are trying to mentally keep track
just
of them.
Just like bullies in a bar that throw a lady down on the ground.
Yeah. It's like...
And there's nothing there.
Who was that? Just people. Like, we sit there at the Roadhouse with 2 to 3 people an episode just talking about town drama. And yeah, I forgot about the guys that throw the girl down on the floor and she crawls out into the crowd and screams.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much of stuff like that goes nowhere and is just there for flavor.
But it's flavorless. It's literally paprika on your deviled eggs. It did nothing.
You have to buy the good stuff from the grocery store. But it's, yeah, I got so fucking sick of Roadhouse characters that went nowhere. And tying into that, Audrey Horne. Late introduction. We get Audrey in the very back half of the season. She's one of the stars of the original series, one of the returning cast. I've been on tenterhooks to know what happened to her since the bomb went off. Like, I want to know what's going on with Audrey.
Yeah.
We get Audrey late in the series. She is a prisoner of a man with short arms who's her husband. She hates him, but she's afraid to leave the house. At some point, we realize that she's trapped in some sort of an illusion or construct or whatever, and that's the last we ever see of her. And you damn near lost me. like, because that happens. I think we see that Audrey is in some sort of construct. Episode 16, I think, maybe 17, and we never get back to it. And I was so pissed about it. Like, it soured the whole it made it hard. It just made it hard to turn around.
Yeah, even if we had learned that she was like stuck in the Black Lodge and she couldn't get free, that would be something.
It would be something, but we just know because she snaps out of the illusion for a second. And then the episode ends, or we cut to someone else, and we get nothing. Like, we got no resolution for Bobby's story either. But I saw his arc in a way that, even though the story is not tied up satisfactorily, I have a sense of completion to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And where Audrey, it just seems like they forgot to put her in until the very end. And ran out of time. Mm-hmm. And when you have 19 episodes to work with, you shouldn't run out of time.
No, absolutely
you
not.
have all the time in the world. We could cut, like, Dougie staring at a piece of pie or holding his dingus because he doesn't know how to pee. Like, we can cut a few Dougie scenes to give us a complete story for Audrey. So, anyways,
this could have been a tight 12 episodes.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole thing where Showtime wanted to do 9 episodes, and Lynch was adamant that it had to be. Is it 19 or 18?
I think it's 18.
So they wanted to do 8, and he was adamant it had to be 18, and he was ready to walk away from the whole thing. And ultimately, it came down to if he could make it work with the budget they gave him, he could do as many episodes as he wanted.
Okay.
And I feel like it would have been better with fewer episodes. The storytelling decisions would have had to be smarter, and a lot of the stuff that's just in there for flavor, you would have to, by necessity, not include it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think the unlimited runtime, like, make as many episodes as you want for this amount of money, actually ends up harming the series.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So I'm being long-winded, but that is what didn't work for me. So
what's your final thoughts and rating?
Like I said at the start, I've been wrestling with this show for about a week or just under. And I've come around on it. I was actively hostile to it when it completed. Like, I was very frustrated with how the show ended. And it's taken me a while to come to terms with it. So I think, similarly to season 2 that I had problems with, I'm giving it a 3.
Okay.
It's a conditional recommendation. I think if you're in this deep, you owe it to yourself and to the series to finish it. And it's worth watching because there's some incredible performances in it. And there's philosophically very interesting ideas explored in it. And the world is rich, but there's filler. There's fluff in here that
absolutely
that harmed my enjoyment of it.
All right.
But I have settled in at a 3. What about you? What's your final thoughts?
Same thing. I had hoped to enjoy this more.
Yeah.
I really wanted this to be more. I wanted it to be tighter. I wanted it to be more focused on the characters and less ethereal and wandering. And the whole Dougie Jones thing was just. I mean, there were entertaining moments, but that could have been 3 episodes. It didn't need to be 15, 14.
Yeah, it is most of the series.
Yeah, most of the series, he's Dougie Jones. And, I mean, the Mr. C stuff was way more interesting, even though he's terrible and evil, is way more interesting. I mean, especially like when he encounters the arm wrestling gang. What group in real life determines their absolute life and death loyalty based on who can win an arm wrestling match?
Cartoon gangs.
Yeah, that was weird.
But it's also great. The whole thing where he's neutral position. That's more comfortable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you had my arm down here and it really hurt. Isn't it more comfortable here? Like,
it was amusing and stuff, but it was weird. And I guess that's Lynch.
Yeah.
So I give it a 3 stars. This is a qualified recommend. If you've watched season 1 and 2, you kind of have to finish it.
Yeah.
It's worth finishing. If you slogged through season 2, this is better than season 2. Is more fun. It's more enjoyable.
There's no little Nicky.
You get some closure.
Yeah. But not too much.
Yeah, not enough, but some. The world around us doesn't fully agree with us because they would have probably given it a 4-star. Like Rotten Tomatoes gave it 78%. IMDb gives it 8.7. And Google didn't have an aggregate, but IGN did, which was 8.8.
Yeah.
So they rated it like at 4.5. But I don't know. They must not have watched the same things or watch it with a critical eye.
I think maybe we're just too dumb. We're just simple people who watch Reacher, and
nothing wrong with Reacher.
I have to say, going to Reacher from this,
I also went to Reacher from this.
Yeah, and it is delightfully thick-headed and stupid
and straightforward.
And I'm like, Reacher is a good way to come down from Twin Peaks. There's no thinking involved.
There are bad guys there. You better get him.
Yeah. Reacher just like, I don't know I'm going to smash this guy's head down on a spike and then stuff him under the desk and I'll deal with that later.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Reacher is...
It's the best chaser for Twin Peaks I can think of.
It's so unrepentantly stupid that it's charming in it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like...
It's like watching a Die Hard movie. You're not supposed to be thinking heavily. It's just, whatever.
Yeah.
Bad guy's good guy.
That's funny. Yeah. So
let's go ahead and roll the music, and then we'll come back with our Vault of Darkness.
Before we delve into the Vault of Darkness, we ask that all initiates of the cult follow us on your favorite social media platforms at Nightshade Cult.
If you've enjoyed this content, help us grow the cult by sharing it with like-minded people and leave a review or comment wherever you listen.
What are you pulling out of the vault? Oh, first, do you have any dark tidings?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't
then
have
what are
anything.
you pulling out of the vault for us?
All right. So I've been listening to an audiobook, and I could have sworn that I'd talked about this series before, but I did a search of all my notes, and I haven't. This is This is the Stormlight Archive, and this is an epic fantasy series, and it's set on a war-torn planet called Roshar. There are magical storms that go across the world and infuse gemstones with magical energy. They're used as currency, but also as magical batteries.
Okay,
because it has like an intrinsic and useful element to it. It's kind of a cool core magic system, but it's really a political series about warring nations and the return of ancient orders of knights who swear these binding magical oaths, which give them power to use this stormlight, the magical energy, to wield fantastic powers. And there are different orders of knights with different abilities, and it's all the while they're fighting against an oncoming essentially apocalypse called a desolation, where the world is sort of destroyed and then it has to rebuild again, and this cycle has been occurring. And so they're trying to prevent the desolation that is coming, and it focuses on several perspectives a la Martin, with cool multiple narrators. Like there's a primarily female perspective, one of the biggest characters, and they have a woman narrate those chapters of the book, and I appreciate that. And it's just super good. This is Brandon Sanderson's epic fantasy. This is his big super, like, this is his try at the most grand scale of fantasy that he could do. And this is book 5. It's called Wind and Truth. But the first book, if you haven't read it, is called The Way of Kings. And The Way of Kings is just a fantastic book. It's so good. And these are long because he doesn't limit himself by pages in this series. Most of his books are paced really, really tight. The tempo, like, he's really good at keeping things super tight. These books, he lets himself breathe. You get time with side characters. You get time with the setting. And so they're big. They're like Martin level big. Okay. And I just love this
George
series.
R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
People were confused.
If you weren't sure, George R.R. Martin. And this is, if you don't know who Brandon Sanderson is, I'm a fan. He's the guy who finished The Wheel of Time when Jordan died. And
you've definitely brought up his books before.
Yeah, I've read some of his other stuff, like the Mistborn series. I listened to his. He's also a professor at BYU. He teaches writing. I've listened to his lectures online. He's a really good lecturer, and so I recommend this book if you want to read kind of like highly fantastical, meta, like epic scale fantasy. The Stormlight Archive, definitely high recommend. I'm on the 5th book. It just came out. It's brand new, and but it's like, for an audiobook, it's like almost 60 hours. So I'm not. Oh, wow. I'm like not even halfway through because it's brand new. Okay. So what do you got? What are you pulling out of the vault? 2 books that we have referenced heavily over these last few podcasts, and I think they are illuminating and enriching if you are in the world of Twin Peaks, and those would be The Secret History of Twin Peaks by Mark Frost and the Twin Peaks: The Final Dossier by Mark Frost, which, calling it a sequel, it seems it is more like an addendum that needed to come out after The Return had already aired because it has spoilers in it. And so they broke it into a separate book, but it is clearly, they are of a piece with each other. They are intended to be consumed together, I think. I think so, too.
Yeah. And just the in-world premise of the book is that Gordon Cole has found this dossier that was left by someone called the Archivist, who has compiled all of the sort of supernatural and unexplainable events tied to this town of Twin Peaks. And we've already spoiled this, but the Archivist ends up being Major Briggs, who all through the series, he was doing top secret work through these books, we discover what that top secret work was.
Yeah.
And it ties it back, like we said, to like ancient Sumerian myths and to Aleister Crowley,
Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, it starts out with missing journals from Meriwether Lewis, and it's all annotated by Special Agent Tamara Preston, who is being kind of tested to see if she's ready to join the Blue Rose Task Force at the time that she's annotating the final dossier, or no, the secret dossier, and then she's already in it because she writes the final dossier after the conclusion of Twin Peaks: The Return. It's her report on everything that happened. And it is fascinating. As someone who went to school in Washington State, this is like the X-Files version of Washington State history.
Yeah, absolutely. We took Washington State history in school, and this is like the bizarro world.
Yeah, you're like, it just gives you like Chief Joseph. We learned from this day forward, I'll fight no more forever.
Yeah.
We learned all of these things, but there is a sort of Black Lodge, White Lodge connection to all of these events from Washington State history. And it just, it's every time, as far as I could tell from just my brief, I didn't check it as thoroughly as Special Agent Tamara Preston. When she annotates confirmed on some historical event that's listed in there, these are all real things that happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird alt history that's extrapolations on things we know happened.
Yes, exactly. And then just completely fantastical things woven in between these events. And in a lot of ways, I found the books more enjoyable than parts of the series, and that the books improved on my appreciation of the series. I think the actual paper editions of these books are kind of expensive right now. I don't think they're in print, but they're well available digitally as ebooks or as audiobooks, and I recommend both of them. And I know David listened to them as well.
Yeah, the narrator on the audiobook is really good.
Yeah, and there's some for the secret history, certain characters write their own journals. Hawk narrates several passages. He narrates all the stuff about the Nez Perce tribe, and then also the stuff that the character Hawk wrote in his journal that's included in there. And I think Russ Tamblyn, who's Dr. Jacoby, narrates his chapters, and
Dr. Amp.
Yeah, Dr. Amp. Yeah, dig yourself out of the shit. It's very, very enjoyable and enriching to the series. So I recommend both books highly.
I liked the Secret History and the Secret Dossier, the final dossier. They were absolutely more enjoyable than several of the episodes.
Yeah, please, Frost, write another one. I want the final dossier.
Yeah, more.
Give me one more dossier.
The post-mortem.
Yeah.
We'd like to thank you for joining the Nightshade Cult.
Until we meet again, we're wishing you unpleasant dreams.